Man, I'm just up here looking at the tides. It's a peaceful day here in France. They go up and they go down. And that got me thinking, how do the tides work? So I go on Google and I read, whenever the moon, earth, and sun are aligned, the gravitational pull of the sun adds to that of the moon, causing maximum tides. Spring tides happen when the sun and moon are on the same side of the earth, new moon, or when the sun and the moon are on opposite sides of the earth, full moon. Okay, so I wanted to visualize this. So I got on Google Images and I looked for the best diagrams to help me understand how the tides work. This is the first diagram I saw. You see, the moon is pulling one tide, and that's the high tide. But then it says the sun's gravitational pull is pulling the other tide. Then I say, okay, that makes sense. But what happens when the moon and the sun aren't in those locations? So I click on this diagram and I see that the sun's gravitational pull is not pulling the larger tide. See on that top image? It's not the sun's gravitational pull pulling the antipodal tide. And then what's the strangest of all is that when the moon and the sun are on the same side, their gravitational pull is tugging on that water. But then on the other side, the tide is just as big, but there's no gravitational pull. So I click on another diagram and I read that the moon again pulls the water. The moon's gravitational force pulls on the water to create that high tide. But now they're saying Earth's centrifugal force is creating that other tide. Do you know what that even means? It means that the water is spinning off. So, according to their logic, the centrifugal force only makes the water rise in the high tide area, but not the low tide area. So you're saying either it's the sun's gravitational pull or either it's centrifugal force. Let's see if there's another one. Let's watch this video of this guy explaining the tides.
The moon's here. It's pulling on the ocean at the top of the Earth,
Okay,
creating
so that's
a high
our first tide.
on the top. And on the bottom, another high tide is created because the Earth itself is pulled toward the moon, even though the oceans down here have less gravitational pull exerted on them, being farthest away from the moon. So,
excuse me? So now you're saying the moon pulls the water on top to create the top tide, but then it now pulls the entire Earth? But it only pulls on the Earth and not the water, so the water is suspended. That doesn't make any sense. You're saying the moon can pull on that water and then pull on the entire Earth to create a tide on the bottom. But the thing is, the moon can't pull the entire Earth. If anything, the Earth should be pulling the moon, not the opposite way around. So let's continue.
So on the top and bottom, you have high tide because of the tidal bulges, and on the sides that are at right angles to the moon, you have low tide because the ocean's stretched thin over the surface of the Earth. Pretty crazy, huh?
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy if you believe that. That the moon can pull on the Earth and create a tide on the opposite side of the moon, where there should be no tide. So let's go over this. Right now, the Globers have 3 reasons why there's 2 tides. Because the moon's only on one side of the Earth at all times. The first one is the moon's gravity pulls on the water, and then the sun's gravity pulls on the water. That can be seen in our first diagram. And then they say the moon's gravity pulls on the water once again. But then to explain the other high tide, they say it's centrifugal force pushing the water outwards. But then in the last video, the guy says the moon's gravity is pulling the water. But then he says the moon's gravity pulls on the Earth more than the water, leaving more water on the top to create a high tide. So which one is it? Please tell me which one is correct, because I don't really think any is correct. In fact, I know they're all wrong, because we don't live on a globe. I know that there's no correlation with the moon cycle and the tides. Mr. Thrive and Survive has several good videos on that. The moon and the tides have nothing to do with each other, and it's just laughable looking at all the different reasons, all the different explanations they come up with to justify their impossible claims. That's what they're doing, because they have no explanation. It's centrifugal force. The moon is pulling on the Earth now. It's just the sun pulling the water. Which one is it? It's 2016. And there's still not a definite answer.
Studying the tides is the tomb of human curiosity, which means it can break your brain.
Yeah, it'll break your brain because you think you live on a globe and you think the moon has some effect on the tides. Yeah, it'll break your brain. That's why I'm calling BS on the moon causing the tides.